From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm John Kennedy. Iran has launched a second night of missile attacks against Israel, while Israel's military continues to keep up the pace of attacks in Tehran and elsewhere in Iran. World leaders are urgently making calls to try and de-escalate and avoid an all-out war in the region. A day after Israel's surprise attack on Iranian nuclear and military sites and Iran's retaliation, with hundreds of missiles and drones launched at Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, a U.S. military official says 3 drones launched towards a military base housing U.S. soldiers in Iraq have been shot down following the Israeli strikes on Iran. No group has claimed responsibility for the drone attack, but supporters of armed factions in Iraq demonstrated in central Baghdad, denouncing the Israeli bombing of Iran. French President Emmanuel Macron has reached out to the Iranian president over the phone to call for an utmost restraint between nations. Britain has announced it is sending jets and other military assets to the Middle East as the confrontation threatens to escalate further. U.S. President Donald Trump is set to arrive in Alberta tomorrow for the G-7 summit, and Ottawa is taking steps to ensure that things remain calm. Last time Trump was in Canada was 2018, when he stormed out of the G7 summit over a dispute about steel tariffs. Prime Minister Mark Carney has presented Trump with golfing gear from a course near the G7 summit site. Eric Miller of the Rideau Potomac Strategy Group says it would be smart to ensure that Trump gets some time on the course.
Golf has been pretty central to his life and to his view of things. And, the bottom line reality is that, frankly, golf is like a 4-hour walk with somebody you want to chat with, 4-hour cart ride with somebody you want to ride with. And so I think it makes eminent sense.
Ottawa passed a cabinet order giving diplomatic immunity to G7 guests, ensuring the 34 times convicted felon Trump is allowed to enter Canada without issue. A manhunt is underway for the suspect in a shooting of 2 Minnesota lawmakers. Minnesota law enforcement official Drew Evans says a 57-year-old man was spotted in surveillance video in the Minneapolis area.
At this time, he was in the Twin Cities area, and that we are continuing to work and follow up on that. We believe he's working to potentially flee the area, and so that's why we're sharing that with that information now so that we can safely apprehend him.
A Minneapolis state representative and her husband were shot and killed in their home this morning, while a Minnesota state senator and his wife were shot and wounded at a different home in a nearby community. It's been almost a decade since 24 Sussex Drive was abandoned as the official residence of the Canadian Prime Minister. However, taxpayers are still shelling out large amounts to maintain the vacant property. Prime Minister Mark Carney says it's not up to him to make a call on what to do with the historic home, putting the decision on the National Capital Commission instead. Carney is now the second Prime Minister to not live at the residence, with Rideau Cottage on the grounds of Rideau Hall serving as the official residence of the Prime Minister for now. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, Oilers goaltender Calvin Pickard will get the start for Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight. The 32-year-old is set to face the Florida Panthers after making 23 saves off the bench in Edmonton's dramatic 5-4 overtime victory on Thursday, which evened up the best-of-7 series at 2-2. Pickard improved to a perfect 7-0 this postseason with the victory. The Saskatchewan Roughriders visit the Hamilton Tiger Cats in CFL action tonight. The Riders meet the season with a 31-26 home win over Ottawa last week. Meanwhile, the Ticats were handed a 38-26 loss in Calgary by the Stampeders. Emma Raducanu will miss next week's Berlin Open because of a back problem as she tries to get ready for Wimbledon. The 37th-ranked tennis player has been dealing with back issues since before the French Open last month. Meanwhile, JJ Spawn holds the top spot, tied with Sam Burns in the U.S. Open. Canadian Nick Taylor is tied for 14th at +4. From the Canadian Press, I'm John Kennedy.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.